Hello, crew. I'm making a video for you here with a lot of driving footage just because I need something to do with the driving footage, so why not? You'll see this video is us driving around the Brecon beacons in the vicinity of Carrickkennen, and in this early shot, actually you can see Carrickkennen Castle in the background here as we're driving. You'll see it for the first couple of minutes as we're driving to the castle. We just spent a week in South Wales. We spent 3 nights in this little rural area with very little internet. Then we went and spent 2 nights in Tenby, and then another 2 nights in Brecon before coming back north. And most of this trip has been it has been very little touring, actually. It's been more sort of trying to set our schedules more similar to what they would be like when we're at home, where we get up in the morning and work, and then find something, a walk or something to do, and then go back and work some more, and then do something in the afternoon. But much more leisurely, doesn't feel quite as manic. And I had forgotten this week in the South was pretty manic. Every day, we're staying at bed and breakfasts. So we get up and have breakfast, and then we go out and tour, and we see a whole bunch of things. And then come back, and I'm busy trying to upload and process photographs and video, usually working till about 10 or 10:30, just till I'm too tired, and then going to bed and starting over, and always feeling like I'm behind. I'm making this video the first morning we're back in the north, so we're taking a little more leisurely morning, although we're getting ready to go out now pretty soon. So you'll see, once again, Carrickkennen Castle. It becomes clearer as you get closer to it here. And we went up there and met Tom Mumford, Sarah's narrator, and walked up to the castle, and we had tea beforehand in the tea room there, and then we came back and had lunch and just had a nice time hanging out with Tom and enjoying that. It was really windy, and it was raining hard when we first right after we got out of the car. The earlier footage there, actually, it just was chucking it down rain. But when we left the castle afterwards, there were a few little things on the map that I had marked that I thought would be fun to visit on our way to Brecon. And it wasn't that far of a drive. It was like an hour. And so one was a mountain overlook. Another was a really old yew tree that supposedly is close to 5,000 years old. But the cool thing is that by routing to those things, Google took us on these back roads, and as you can see, you're going through the lowlands here, and then all of a sudden you pop out into the moors, which have very little trees, not very little vegetation. They have plenty of vegetation. And you can see it was this crazy windy, rainy day with squalls coming through. But we did get some blue sky, as you can see. I'm looking at my list of things to talk about here. And what's happening here is actually we've left Carrickkennen Castle, and we're still fairly close to it. But as we're driving up through the moors, we looked off to the right, and we were doing this on purpose, and you could see the castle from a slightly different angle. Maybe I'll cut in a picture that I took. But we took pictures. We stopped at several places driving around the castle, and some distance from the castle on these little roads, and stopped and took pictures when we got views of the castle. So it was kind of cool, and the sky was quite moody, and the weather was beautiful. It ended up being a great day. While we were at Carrickkennen Castle, though, right as we're walking up to it, I slipped in the mud and fell and slid down a slope, I don't know, 10 feet or something. So I had mud caked all over one side of me the whole time, but that was fine. Yeah, so as you see, one of the places we had listed to visit was this mountain overlook. And just as and that wasn't that far from the previous footage you saw of us driving through the moors. But as we pulled in here, a big hailstone hit. And, and so we're like, let's just sit in the car and see what happens here. So we end up sitting in the car, and after a few minutes, these troop of young men, there were two vans full of them, were trying to take shelter from the wind somehow on one side or the other of their van. And it just happened that this was during Easter break. So they get 2 weeks of break from school. And so undoubtedly they're out on some sort of expedition like Brad and the Boy Scouts were. And we just happened to pull in just as the hail hit, and they were just getting pummeled out there, which I thought was really funny. But the fact that we were doing this during Easter break meant there were a ton of people around, a ton of tourists. Tenby was pretty packed with people. It's a tourist town on the coast. There were actually a lot of people at Carrickkennen, even though it was a really windy, miserable day. I think we were the first people there, but then people showed up as we were there. But anyway, we had a really good time touring around this week, but it was exhausting. So we sat at this mountain overlook and just waited for the hail to pass. And then we decided we were going to head for this spot, which had this 4,000 to 5,000 year old yew tree, actually probably closer to 5,000. It's listed as the oldest tree in Britain on the sign there, I think. I'm not going to show you pictures of it, but we did actually go to it, and you'll see some more of the driving footage. So we went there, and it's funny because we were driving from here to that spot, and we were just going to follow Google Maps, and we were about to get back on a main road, but the last turn, the last road that diverged from the little one we were on, had the name of the town that we were going to on it. And so we decided to take that instead, and it was great because it was another one of these. I think that's the last little clip here that you're going to see in just a minute, was us taking that last little road from, instead of taking the main road, taking this little farm lane to the town where this giant, or not, this very old yew tree was. The yew trees and churches on this trip have been actually a really great kind of new thing we've been looking at, which we hadn't looked at in the past. So we've been going to a ton of churches and looking for the old yew trees now that we know what to look for. And it's funny because, I've got this map with this list of places, and literally in this case, we went to the old yew tree, and that was fine. It was marked on the map as the old yew tree. But yesterday, when we were driving up to the north, we visited a couple churches, and I had them on the map just because they were old churches I'd found, and something reading about them caught my eye. And what happens is, Sarah we look at our route and see what's close by, and Sarah clicks on one, and then she starts reading about it. And yesterday, one of the churches that I'd marked, it wasn't that interesting. It was built, in the late Middle Ages, and just didn't seem that interesting. But then when we actually Sarah started reading about it, it turns out that inside of it, the roof and what do they call it? There were 5 arches in the middle of the church that supported one side of the roof, and then had another room off to the side past those 5 arches. But the 5 arches and the roof came from an abbey called Abbey Cumhir, which we've been to multiple times, which is nothing but there's hardly anything left of it. but it's the place where Llewellyn ap Griffith was buried. And it's in the hills, and then during the dissolution of the monasteries, it was basically abandoned. Well, this church, somebody went and they took apart the entire roof and these arches, and we had been to Abbey Coombe here multiple times. We read about it. Sarah's read tons of stuff about it, looked it up and researched it, and never heard that actually you could go to this church and walk into it and see what the roof actually looked like and these arches that were actually from there. Anyway, that's what we've been doing. Making a quick video. Talk to you later. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Bye.